everybody? We are back for another episode. I am Keith. This is my cat, and that's Tom. As always, Tom, how are you today, bro?
Doing good, man. I guess your cat Sawyer is now the unofficial third guest host.
Fourth.
It used to only be. I was just gonna say it used to always be Chance. We haven't seen Chance in a couple episodes. He's kind of skipped out on us. So in his place is Sawyer here. Happy to be back. We actually got a pretty good fight card coming up this weekend. UFC Noche last weekend. I think the last time we talked was before Sean Strickland was the UFC middleweight champion. So good amount of stuff to discuss. A good amount of stuff has happened. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, Chance stopped appearing on the show. Like, I know he's your dog, so you got to cover for him, but his head got a little big, and his agent got in his ear, and he raised his rates on us. Sawyer's cheaper, but being that he's a cat, he also just kind of does what he wants. So
he's from the streets, yeah. So we didn't really have a say. We didn't have a say if he, if he wanted to be on the show, he was going to be on the show. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, he literally didn't have a choice because he was homeless up until about a week ago. No, 2 weeks ago, and now he just lives here. But he's a good cat. He's just chilling next to the computer now. He's a good guy.
Well, congratulations to the happy couple.
That's my boy. We're not a couple. It's a friendship. It's a friendship.
Right. Whatever you say.
Yeah. Anyway.
With that being said, what?
Yep.
Sean Strickland getting the job.
Who had him?
Did we have him? I don't think we had him.
I had him.
Did you have him?
I said Izzy Adesanya is more than likely going to win this fight. So I will say this. I believe I said he was my pick for the show, but that I was going to throw a nice bet on Sean Strickland. And he was plus 600, threw a little bit of money on him, walked away with 4 digits. So, solid payout. With the way that my units go, I would say I put 8 units on Sean Strickland because I had made money off the card up to that point. And, yeah. And then even this past weekend, I had Roman Kopylov by TKO. Unfortunately, we didn't get around to doing an episode. We get busy every now and then, guys. That's why we go on Mondays and Tuesdays and stuff. We have lives.
Let's get it when we can.
Exactly. But last week had some good picks too. So been on a little bit of a roll now that we're back and we're live. Hoping to keep the rolling going. Hoping to keep rolling.
Some of that.
Put butter on me because I'm on a roll.
There you go.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right. You want to dive into this bad boy right here?
Yeah, let's talk about this fight card coming up this weekend. Yes, sir.
I do just want to mention real quick. Did you happen to catch the Shevchenko-Grasso fight?
I meant to, and then I fell asleep. I haven't gone back and watched it, but
you didn't miss much. Just odd fight. Weird moments at the end of it. It was a good fight, definitely back and forth. Could see how there was one judge that gave the last round a 10-8 to Alexa Grasso, and there was really no reason for him to do that because that last round you could have scored either way. And it was odd that he made the last round, which is very even, a 10-8 round because that made his final scorecard 47-47, I believe. And the other 2 judges, one for Shevchenko, one for Grasso. So, and I know a lot of people didn't stick around to watch that fight. The co-main event was really the premier fight of the night. It was really fun to see Jack Della Maddalena strike against a guy like Kevin Holland. So, I could understand not watching the main event. But, again, very back and forth 5th round, 10-8 scorecard, makes it an even scorecard, split from the first 2 judges. Next thing you know, we have a draw. A majority draw, I believe. Or no, not a majority draw, just a draw. So Alexa Grasso retains the title. And then I don't know if you saw this, but she gets on the mic with DC. And he's like, what did you think about that? Did you think that you did enough to win that fight? And she's like, I won. I am still the winner. And he was like, but it was a draw. So funny. Such a funny, I don't know. He kind of set himself up for it with the question. But
I didn't see him ask the question. I just saw her give the answer. Like, I threw the harder punches. I was more aggressive. I, controlled the cage more. I won that fight. And he goes, but it was a draw. Like,
Yeah.
he responded to her, like, adamantly trying to claim it. Now, I didn't see the first part. So, I mean, that is a little fucked up if he, like, baited her into that and then, like, dumped on her after. But I did watch the Kevin Holland fight, and that was a really, really good fight. But I heard, just to go back to the Valentina fight real quick, like I said, I didn't watch it, but I have seen the reaction. I didn't know the result. And I heard her quote, or I saw that she had quoted, like, hey, because you gave such a questionable judge card in, and it was so pivotal in determining the end of the fight, I think you owe everybody a justification and a reason as to why you gave that score. So she's vocal. And I think she said somewhere else that, potentially he felt the pressure of being in Mexico and he labeled it a draw, but he should have given it to her. Again, I don't know any validity to those claims. I haven't gone back and watched the fight, but I think it is pretty interesting. And, it wasn't like, a lot of people were going in there and calling for, Grasso would almost run over her. Like, a lot of people had closed the door on Shevchenko's time even for it to be, a draw or, again, I haven't watched the fight, but from everything I could gather, it seems like it was at least a close fight.
So, very close, very close.
I don't think the sun has set it on Valentina, with that show.
No, absolutely not. I think they have to run this fight back. I don't know if Dana said that they're going to or not, but this is a fight that, like, absolutely has to go again because Valentina is one of the greatest of all time. Women fighter, period. Great record, great resume, whatever. You have to give her that shot because after a fight like that, you don't just close the book like that. They built up the trilogy or quadrilogy between Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo so many times. There's no reason not to revisit this fight. They absolutely have to. So, all right. Now, with that being said, do you want to jump into this UFC Fight Night card?
Let's do it.
All right, cool.
All right. Why don't you go first with a prelim lock?
Yeah, this one I feel really good about, and it's actually Tim Means against Andre Fiallo. Both of these guys are 3-2 in their last two fights. Tim Means is a slight dog in this one at plus 165. That is primarily because he has struggled against more upper echelon opponents, and he doesn't have a style that benefits him well against guys that he's fought recently. Like Alex Morono he's nobody to scoff at. He gets in there and does his thing, and his style isn't necessarily conducive to a Tim Means win. He relies on the cage clinching a little bit more grappling, whereas Andre Fiallo doesn't. Split decision against Max Griffin, and then he had a competitive fight against Kevin Holland for as long as it lasted, where eventually he got darsed. But really not bad. Great fight against Nicholas Dalby. Had a win against Mike Perry. So Tim the Dirty Bird Means solid competition just on a 3-fight losing streak. You could say the same about Andre Fiallo too, except for the fact that in his last 3 fights, like Tim Means didn't take so much damage in his last 3 losses, right? It was 2 submissions where he tapped and a split decision against Max Griffin. On the flip side, you have Andre Fiallo fighting basically like in such a short time span always, and his last 3 fights, he's gotten put to sleep. He's 29, but he definitely has fight miles on him, especially because of like the short time between fights and the damage that he's taken. Then the guy looks like he's a little bit of a step slower than when we started to like really figure out who Andre Fiallo was. Like he was really fun competition for a while there, really up until like the Miguel Baeza fight is really the one that stands out to me the most. Miguel Baeza slipping a little bit, but that was the one where I really started to take notice of Andre Fiallo. And then he knocked out Cameron Van Camp, solid knockout. But ever since then, he's been slipping. And I think that trend continues for Andre Fiallo this week, but Tim Means gets back into the W column because Tim Means is a guy that applies pressure. He gets in there tight and wants to fucking scrap with you. And Andre Fiallo, is at this point, like he looks like he's just a step behind. And a guy like Tim Means that really wants to just throw hands and have an exciting fight and apply the pressure throughout it. That's not good for a guy like Andre Fiallo. If he was fighting a little bit more of like a lackluster counter striker, maybe he'd be in a better matchup this fight. But I think that Tim Means is going to apply the pressure and just come after Andre Fiallo. And if he puts one on his chin, it looks like at this point Andre Fiallo. 3 months ago, he fought Joaquin Buckley. 3 months. That's not enough time to recover from 3 knockouts in the span of a year. That's not enough time. You need to take like a year off from the sport. And yet he's back in here. If Tim Means touches him on the button, I think it's going to be good night Fiallo. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? You pretty much went and you said it all. I think you look back and you look at the type of fighter that Andre Fiallo is, and you're not getting a lot of submission victories out of him. Tim Means, that's really where his weakness is at this stage in his career. 2 of his last 3 losses has been to a submission decision or a submission finish. So I think without that threat coming at him this week, I think with Fiallo, even though he is a minus 200 favorite here, I think this fight on the feet, even though Tim Means has lost a bit of a step at 39 years old here, I think he still is an intelligent fighter. Unfortunately, he is hittable, and I think that's where maybe a lot of people could see this fight going, where Andre Fiallo at 29 years old is just going to be faster and have a little bit more power and be able to find Tim Means, find his chin, find him more, effectively. Because Tim Means is just a little bit slower, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. I think he's going to be, obviously the more experienced fighter, the more intelligent fighter. I think he's been doing a great job at avoiding getting hit his entire career, even up until this point. So I think I'm going to be going with the underdog here, Tim Means, to go ahead and get it done. I think the experience is going to come through. I think striking has always been a strong suit of his, and I don't see Fiallo coming in there and trying to, get after that weakness that Tim has in the submission game. So I'm going with Tim Means, Dirty Bird, to eke this one out on a 2-1 decision.
Yeah, that's solid. Plus 165 is such a solid line for this guy this week. I have no qualms about throwing like 2-3 units on Tim Means straight, as well as maybe throwing him in a parlay as well. What do you got? Do you got any more or?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Miles Johns and Dan Argueta, and I'm going to be going with Dan Argueta. I know he's the minus 190 favorite here, but I expect him to be able to go out there and get this done. Here, you got Miles Johns, who is a wrestler by trade, and he's one of those guys that knocked a guy out here or there, or started to fall in love with his hands, and he really lost that grappling ability that gotten him success up into the UFC point. Dan Argueta is a guy who, even though he's going to be a year older or 7 months older than Miles Johns, who's 29 coming into the fight, he hasn't lost that grappling base as he's gotten into the UFC. Even though Miles Johns has good takedown defense up to this point, I think when you go back and you look at his record, his takedown defense is really against people who didn't have that great of takedowns anyway. So if you're not fighting against guys who have a really good takedown or even average takedown offense and takedowns, of course you're going to have a high takedown defense if you're above average at that. So I think Dan Argueta is going to have the ability to take down Miles Johns despite that really impressive takedown defense number that Miles Johns has. He doesn't use his grappling that much, so I'm going to have to give the advantage to Dan Argueta there. That goes a long way when you're trying to predict a fight. Wrestling is a very, very strong part of MMA, and in a lot of cases, it is the decision maker if you have to point to one martial art. So I think there, and then on the feet, I think Dan Argueta, he does get hit, but I think he is intelligent. He does come forward. He does force fighters to fight off their back foot. So if you have Miles Johns fighting off his back foot and he takes away that takedown, or that takedown threat is still there, I think Dan Argueta is going to be able to pull this one out. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. The styles make fights, and the wrestling is very big for Dan Argueta here. Argueta. And I'm with you. I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head right there. I'm going to be tailing that pick. You ready to move on to the main card?
Yeah, I thought there was going to be a lot more cards fights to pick from on this undercard here, but looks like a light card, but it is pretty well stacked with good fights here.
I will say that some of them are tough, right? Like I was looking at the Jake Collier Muhammad Usman fight before, and I was like, kind of thinking of the, like you look at the money line there, right? Like what is Jake? He's a plus 145 dog, throws a lot of volume. I mean, I could talk about this one real quick, but I'm not going to come to a conclusion on it. So I almost don't want to waste time, but I will say like a lot of volume from Jake. gets tired. Muhammad Usman really, 2-fight win streak, but really like lackluster thus far. It's I'm not impressed with either of these guys, but like there's potentially I don't know. We could talk about it, but I don't want to pick anybody in that one. So sorry for wasting our time.
Well, no, listen, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take Muhammad Usman, but it's because it's a guy like Jay Collier. You can see right there, he's 1-4 over his last 5, and it's not a very strong level of competition. There is a loss in there to Andrei Arlovsky, which granted, Andrei Arlovsky is a difficult opponent at any age, but definitely less so in his older age. He's got losses in there to let's just take a look at it and see exactly what it's up to guess. But Martin Boudet and Chris Barnett. And as much as fun as Chris Barnett is, he's not top level or even merely medium level UFC competition. So Jay Collier's got a lot of room to improve. At 34 years old, and this is a guy who started, remember, at middleweight, 185 pounds, and he's just kind of ballooned up in bad weight up to 265 pounds, up to his most recent time weighing in at that heavyweight limit. So for a guy who is not that skillful and has a lot of extra body fat on him, I'm going to find him to be in a lot more of a disadvantage against even Muhammad Usman, who, granted, he's the younger brother of a UFC champion or a former UFC champion. He doesn't have the grappling base that Kamaru has. He doesn't have the speed. He does have a lot of power, but he's a little bit slower, but he is patient in there. So I think Jay Collier is a guy who tries to swarm. He tries to go with volume, but he doesn't really have that much stamina. I think Muhammad Usman is going to be able to, defend a lot of those. I don't think we've seen him have really too many chin issues. I want his only losses be a submission. So I don't think his chin is that big of an issue for him, and especially not against Jake Collier. So I think he'll be able to fight off any oncoming offense that Jake has to prove. We don't see Jake really going out there and knocking anybody down. And I think because of that, Muhammad Usman's going to eventually, when the fight goes on, not land more punches, but land the more impactful punches. I don't think this is going to be very entertaining beyond the first 2 minutes, or really even at all. You have Muhammad Usman, who's a very passive fighter, not extremely skilled, and Jay Collier, not extremely skilled, tries to combat that with volume, but that doesn't last very long. Like I said, when you go from 185 pounds to 265 pounds, and it's not the most healthy weight that you're putting on there, it just leaves a lot of questions and a lot of a lot of people wondering what happened with the career there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he definitely did find a little bit of success at heavyweight in the beginning. Like he was almost on his way out of fighting, it looked like, when he was fighting at 185. But it also does look like all he did to get up to heavyweight was drink milkshakes and eat Big Macs. Definitely not a healthy. Like we saw John Jones take like 2 years off the sport, 3 years off, whatever. Potential strip of the title, whatever. Get into conspiracy theories, but he came back heavy and lean. Jake Collier, maybe, John Jones could also do that. Jake Collier probably couldn't get away with taking 2 years off. He'd probably get cut. So, put on the weight. The more that I think about it, the more I actually think Muhammad Usman is like a solid lock this week, because 2 fights he's really on a 4-fight winning streak. 2 fights they don't have included right there on his record is his 2 fights on The Ultimate Fighter. And then he went on to beat Zach Payuga, I believe, for the finale. I don't know why I had it in my head that Muhammad Usman lost his UFC debut. He didn't. He's unbeaten in the UFC so far. There is a little bit of a pedigree there, right? Like, incredible athlete, obviously comes from a gifted family. Well, you don't know if he comes from a gifted family. I do like your siblings theory, though, right? Like Kamaru Usman has fallen off, and Muhammad Usman is starting to make a little bit of a run here. There's a lot of reasons I could see for Muhammad Usman, and like I said initially, like Jay Collier throws a lot of volume, it gets very tired, and you said that as well. And so I think for all those reasons, like Jay Collier is almost not up to like Junior Tafa, who Muhammad Usman beat in his last fight. I don't think that Jay Collier particularly holds a candle to any of those Samoan guys, the Islanders. So I'm actually going to lock in Muhammad Usman to get a W this week, potentially by decision. but I like Muhammad Usman. That ended up being a solid pick. I couldn't agree more. Even though I wanted to diverge because I feel like the rest of the card we're going to be linking up on a lot of our picks. So, do you want to dive into the main card now?
Yeah, let's get to it. I just think it's funny that we both got to like talk that one out almost live. Just go through the mental process of figuring out, well, what do I think about this guy? What do I think about that guy? How do they match up? What do they think about staminas and coming into the fight and records and all that stuff? And you play and you kind of talk it out. And you're like, oh, holy shit, this guy is actually this is the pick right here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it should be, man. I like that. That was fun.
All right. With that being said, Charles Jourdain, Ricardo Ramos.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm going with Charles Jourdain here. Charles Jourdain is very talented, very obviously. Last fight was a great win for him. And like his wins are all very impressive, and he's got good hands, and he makes good connections, and he's somewhat well rounded. But I think that he's almost due for a finish. It feels like it's like he looks like he's about to finish guys in a lot of his fights, and I feel like this time he's just going to put all the pieces together, and I don't think that Ricardo Ramos is really up to the challenge this week. I think that Charles Jourdain is in a spot where once he puts it all together, and I think that we're getting there, then he's going to finish guys. Yes, he fought Kron Gracie. We were there for that. Hard to believe that was only 4 months ago. Feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, seriously.
But was able to withstand the weird jiu-jitsu from Kron Gracie. His hands look very good. I feel like he's ready for it. I feel like he's a guy that's about to really step into the spotlight. Fun personality, cool guy, handles the media well, and we're starting to see this a little bit, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm I believe in the Matrix too hard, but I feel like the MMA timeline is just lining up where like these guys that are good on the mic are starting to come up again. We had like boring guys on the mic, like, and cringy guys for a little bit there. And these guys that are hot on the mic are starting to come up, and it's shown by Sean O'Malley and Sean Strickland, and Colby is going to be back there soon, and Sean O'Malley. And I think Charles Jourdain is just like another one of these guys that he's a solid fighter. He's just got to put it together, and he's good on the mic, and he's got a good career ahead of him, in my opinion. What do you think, Tom?
So it's really interesting because Ricardo Ramos has been in the UFC for a little bit, and you go back and you look at his time in the UFC. He's not a guy who's out there, he's got 4 wins in the UFC by TKO, two losses by TKO, 7 submission wins and 1 loss. He's a guy who can win in each individual. He can win in each area of MMA. But his last fight was canceled against Austin Lingo because he was weighed in too high above the weight limit. I forget how much that was. He weighed in high above the weight limit there. He had a fight where he was injured before that with Danny Henry. This will be his first fight since June of 2022 rather. Ricardo Ramos is a guy who's been in the UFC for a little bit here, but I think when you look at his level of competition, who he's beat and who he's lost to, I think it just doesn't compare to Charles Jourdain. You look at, again, like I said, you look at Charles Jourdain and the people that he's came and fought against in the UFC. You have the Kron Gracie fight where, again, he was able to fight off any oncoming offense from Kron on the ground, but didn't really get to showcase his stand-up ability. He went to decisions with Daniel Wood and Shane Burgos, and he submitted Lando Venata. Andre Ewell before that, he won by decision. Lost by Darstroke by Julian Erosa, but again, I think Charles Jourdain and the level of relative competition he's faced, passed, and given really good fights to, I think shows off his fight IQ, shows off his speed. He's an exciting fighter, and even when he loses, he finds a way to fight to a decision, and he's not out there getting finished all that much. I think Ricardo Ramos is not anywhere near a quality of fighter that Charles Jourdain is used to fighting, and because of that, it's going to be Jourdain's kind of chance to style, so to speak. I think there's going to be extra pressure on him because this is kind of a drop in competition for him. I think he's going to be the faster fighter, the better IQ'd fighter. Both of them, believe it or not, he's actually going to be the younger fighter as well. So to be younger and more experienced with better competition, I think this is everything's pointing to Charles Jourdain. Even though he's only a minus 135, a slight favorite here, I like him a lot to get this one done.
Yeah, I agree. I like Charles Jourdain a lot in this fight. You want to kick it up to Brian Battle versus AJ?
For sure.
Yeah, you want to start us off here?
Get it on the screen. So yeah, so in this one, I'm just going to be going with Brian Battle. We've seen Brian Battle. I think he was at 185 pounds when he was on the Ultimate Fighter, and then he had since dropped down to 170. And he's been a completely different fighter at 170. Now, this one loss is to Rinat Fakhretdinov. I believe that was short notice, and that wasn't really what we had come to expect from Brian Battle at 170 pounds. He looked great in his debut fight. I believe that was against Takashi Soto, in which he won by a head kick about a year ago. And then 3 weeks ago, or 3 months ago, he knocked out Gabe Green, as you saw there. So I think when you see Brian Battle at what he can do at 170 pounds, he's as good as anyone in the division, potentially a top 10 guy. AJ Fletcher is a guy who we haven't really seen live up to, maybe what we would hope he would have been. He's 2-1 in the UFC, or should I say 1-2 in the UFC. His last win coming via submission against Themba Gorimbo, which isn't great competition. Again, 6 months ago, he has a loss to Angelusa by decision, and Matthew Semmelsberger also by decision. Those are two guys that actually aren't the worst to lose to. So it is going to be good to see him to go against Brian Battle, but I think Brian Battle is going to be the much longer guy here. He's going to have a 10-inch reach advantage. He's 6'1", so he's the much bigger guy. He is going to be 3 years older, and he does have about roughly the same amount of damage taken. Brian Battle, actually, I shouldn't say that. He's got the same amount of fights, but he doesn't have the same amount of damage taken. Brian Battle is the guy who's notorious for not getting hit that much. He's really good at using his length to win fights, and you could see he's 9-2 before his 2 fights ago he was 9-1. That happens inside the UFC. You're not going to win them all, and you're sometimes you're just not going to show up. So I want to almost forgive Brian Battle a little bit for that bad performance, because he did look so good in those other 2 that sandwiched it. I think we're going to see Brian Battle really come into his own in these next few fights. Now, granted, this is his first opportunity to prove that this is, when you're 2-1 and you've had 2 great performances and 1 lackluster, there's a lot of pressure on that 4th performance to show, hey, that one was a fluke because this is a great performance by myself, or, hey, I may have consistency issues. So I think I'm going to go in this fight with Brian Battle, even though AJ Fletcher has faced good competition before. I think that overactivity, and especially the long reach of Brian Battle, is going to be able to keep AJ Fletcher on the back foot, or at least keep him guessing, not be able to get off the kind of offense and that type of charge forward style that AJ Fletcher is known for. And Brian Battle does have sneaky power too, which you can't discredit. And I think if he can find AJ Fletcher, especially throwing more volume, I think the signs point to AJ Fletcher, but it is a little bit of a toss-up because you don't know what you're going to get from him at this point. I think he's good, but this fight will really prove that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, AJ Fletcher with that really charge ahead style, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Duplessis. And it did take Duplessis a little bit of time and UFC experience, as well as a nose surgery, to come into his own. But I like Brian Battle, and I don't want to correct you, but Brian Battle has been in the UFC for not time-wise long, but he's been very active. Since 2021, when he was on the Ultimate Fighter, he's fought against Gilbert Urbina because he was supposed to fight Tresean Gore, and I think
he said 5 fights in the UFC.
Yeah. So he's
over 2 years. Yeah, pretty solidly active. What did I say, that he was new to the UFC?
You have some guys only fight once a year, so he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights, and he's about to have his 7th in 2 years, basically, right?
3 fights this year in 2022, and then this is the 2nd fight this year. Yeah. What did I say? Did I say he wasn't?
Yeah, in 2 years. No, but you said Takashi Sato was his debut, and I just wanted to highlight
his debut at 170.
My apologies, bro. My apologies.
Yeah.
See, you're not wrong. You're never wrong.
Yeah. No, I meant his debut at 170 because remember, he was at 185 and he was just eking out of wins. He didn't look good there.
Right.
I think he was on the Ultimate Fighter at 85.
Yeah.
And he dropped down to 170.
I think what happens sometimes too with those Ultimate Fighter seasons, like we saw it with the Irish fellow that won it. Well, the fake Irish fellow that's really Canadian, that's part of Connor's team.
Oh, right. I forget his name, but I know who you're talking about.
He's a 2-time Ultimate Fighter winner. The first time that he fought on the Ultimate Fighter, he fought at like 125. The second time he fought at 135. And so we do see it quite a bit where like they give these guys opportunities on the Ultimate Fighter, and then they'll say, "Hey, you're a 170 pounder or whatever. Do you want to fight at middleweight on the Ultimate Fighter, or do you want to drop down to this weight, which is probably even harder because you're fighting twice on the show in a short amount of time?" Anyways, Brian Battle came in at 185, didn't look super hot like you said, and this 170 Brian Battle discount 2 fights ago, that loss. I think he's been getting better and better with every fight, especially since dropping down to 170. You just see the IQ. His IQ is very, very high. And I think against a guy like AJ Fletcher that loves that charge ahead approach, who really hasn't mastered it yet, and like he likes to put pressure. A guy like Brian Battle with the power that he has, I'm expecting him almost to catch AJ Fletcher and have like a highlight reel type knockout, where you see AJ Fletcher full steam ahead, Brian Battle with maybe like a little bit of a sidestep and a counter hook and just landing it right on the button and putting AJ Fletcher's lights out. AJ Fletcher, like you said, he has talent. It's really yet to be developed. Brian Battle, I think being on the Ultimate Fighter, he was a good fighter. That's why he was on there. But I think being on there helped him, and we're just seeing a progression of a fighter, really come into his own, especially now that he's at a weight that he feels like comfortable at or he looks comfortable at. I expect a good win. I expect a really good win. And he's very well-rounded. He's 29, so he's not like a spring chicken or anything. And this is when guys reach their athletic peak, is like that 29 to 32 range. So, I think he's poised to, like you said, he could potentially be a top 10 guy on his best night. So he may be poised to have a really fun, really good victory here on Saturday. Definitely going with Brian Battle. I agree with the pick. I love it. Let's see what we got next. I don't have it on my screen immediately.
Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson Gomez.
Yeah. Why do fighters have to get married and make their names so much more difficult? Like we had Joanne Calderwood. Now she's Joanne Calder-Woodwood. Michelle Waterson Gomez the second. Is that what that is? Gomez the second? She took on a second with her name?
No. Not on Tapology.
No, yeah. If you click on the actual fight itself, look at her name. Michelle Waterson Gomez, II.
Oh, no. It's 2 because I believe they fought before.
Oh, wow. I thought maybe she took on her husband's the second. That would be very funny.
No, so Marina Rodriguez won the first one in 2001.
Wow, she's been in the game for a while. They both have. They've both been professional fighters for what? 2001? That means they've been fighting for like fucking 22 years. It makes sense. They're both like 36, 37. I see, like, I know Michelle Waterson from like being in the UFC for how long she has. Marina Rodriguez does not really like strike a memory with me particularly, but she does now because like her, I don't know. I mean, even against Virna Jandiroba, interesting striking style. Amanda Lemos, that's a hard fight. Beat Yan Xiaonan in a split decision. Mackenzie Dern. Oh, you said 2001. No, they fought 2 years ago.
No, I didn't say they fought in 2001. No, 2021.
Oh, I thought you said, wow, dude, what the fuck? It's been a long day.
No, I said 2021.
Okay, well, anyways, Marina Rodriguez is going to win this one. She's evolved more as a fighter. She has like that fun, like hunker down boxing style where she almost goes into a quasi Philly shell. We're starting to see it more from these Brazilian fighters where like just hands up, like Charles Oliveira style, close the distance, get in there and want to throw. Forget that whole thing about them fighting for 20 years. I guess that would make sense. But I know Michelle Michelle Waterson, Karate Hottie, she's been at it for like 15 years almost in the UFC at this point.
Yeah, I think she's been in the UFC since like 2016, and then Marina Rodriguez since like 2018, 2019-ish.
Yeah, dumb long. So yeah, Marina Rodriguez, she has like that. I guess you could almost call it like the Brazil shell at this point. They have the Philly shell, that boxing style. The Brazilian boxers kind of come in a little, or just fighters just kind of come in a little bit more tight, close the distance, love to throw those tight hooks. They love the clinch, and she kind of like follows that same game plan to some degree. Kind of developed into that over a little bit, coming off of 2 losses, but tough losses. Virna Jandiroba is like a weird, awkward striker. Like her striking is almost as weird as her face, and she's got a weird ass face. Like, what can you say? And Marina Rodriguez almost had a couple of moments in that fight, but both a little bit older. But Michelle Waterson Gomez has some more fight miles on her at this point. Yeah, I think Marina Rodriguez is going to get done. Her grappling's better. And she's coming to her own with the striking. So, anyways, what do you think, Tom?
I think Marina Rodriguez, she's going to have Michelle Waterson is called the Karate Hottie. Marina Rodriguez is going to naturally have that specialty in the ground game. But I call me crazy. I think Marina Rodriguez, at least on the feet, because she's going to be able to mix it up, is going to have more success on the feet than maybe you would expect if it was just a pure striking battle. I think, because she has the ground game, I think she's going to go after the takedowns. I think she's going to have a better ground game. And I think it's going to get Michelle Waterson Gomez thinking about both areas of the fight and allow Marina Rodriguez to capitalize in either area. With that being said, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the most entertaining fight, but I think Marina Rodriguez is going to go out there. I think she's going to be more than capable of, getting this one done. She's a little bit younger, both of them getting some tread on the tires, as Keith so eloquently said at the beginning of the fight breakdown. Marina Rodriguez is a little bit longer. And we also just see Michelle Waterson Gomez, between camps have a big, what seems to be a fluctuation in weight, which definitely the older you get is going to be a little bit more challenging for you. And your camps become, and this, I didn't think about this until recently, but when you're really just concentrated on losing weight or making weight rather, you don't do a lot of, technical work and preparing and honing your skills. You're just more focused on making weight and making sure that you're getting those pounds off. So I think if Michelle Waterson Gomez at this point in her career, because we're seeing some of these weight fluctuations, is just working on making weight for her camp instead of honing her skills, I think that's going to make it even more evident for Marina Rodriguez to go in there and go up 2-0 in this in this face-off between fighters. So I'm going Marina Rodriguez to get it done by decision.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. I think she'll do it. Like Michelle Waterson definitely has like way more fight miles on her at this point, in my opinion. So, it just feels like she's been at it for longer, taking more damage. But yeah, a lot of people are saying it's going to be boring. But the karate style and the boxing style, like they're not just going to lay on each other and do do nothing the whole time. Like they're going to fight. They're going to try and throw hands to some degree. So, it's not the worst fight in the world. Bryce Mitchell versus Dan Ige in the co-main event. I'm having a tough one with this one, but I want to be a little bit controversial here. And it's funny, like, I don't know. I don't even know if it's the controversial pick. Maybe it's just because I'm going against what I'm feeling internally. Naturally, I want to take Dan Ige. I feel like, you know what, I'm just going to take Dan Ige. Dan Ige is the way better striker. Bryce Mitchell doesn't necessarily struggle with strikers, but he struggles with guys that can mix it up too. And Dan Ige can be very slippery on the ground and, slide out of a lot of stuff that Bryce Mitchell is going to pull on him. Bryce Mitchell really did not look like he was ready for that next step in competition when he fought Ilia Topuria. It was not a good showing for him. He got dog walked and put to sleep or choked out. Yeah, he got choked out. Just an awful look for Bryce Mitchell. And I don't know if that rattled him at all. He seems to be a guy that gets rattled by things. Like anytime he's in the news media, for like showing his wall of guns. He then needs to make like 7 more appearances on the media and talk about how the world is flat to try and like defend himself for needing guns. Which like you don't need to defend yourself for needing guns, bro. That's your whatever. That's your right where you live. So own your guns. But you don't need to like he goes into like a little bit of like a panic and like a mental spiral about certain things. I'm not saying maybe that happened to him in his last loss. Um, he's not in a particularly big gym where he can talk to other pro fighters that have experienced the same losses, right? Like he trains where he lives in Arkansas at Barada MMA. I don't know who else they have on their roster. I like a lot about Bryce Mitchell. Like as a guy, I think he's a fun, entertaining fighter. Not entertaining fighter. I'm sorry, fun, entertaining personality. As a fighter, he's boring as shit and wants to wrestle guys. He wants to be the Midwest or the American Khabib, I guess. But that loss against Ilya Topuria really exposed him for a lot of stuff. I think the slipperiness and the striking of Dan Ige is going to be what wins it for him here. Like Dan Ige is able to really like slide out of bad positions. And unless Bryce Mitchell opens with a takedown, double leg to begin with, and sits in Dan Ige's full guard for the full first round, does the same thing in the second and third, and is just able to maintain five minutes of control time in each round. I think Dan Ige is going to present Bryce Mitchell with some problems. So I'm going to go with Dan Ige plus money 135. I like the Dan Ige pick here. I don't want to bet against Bryce Mitchell necessarily, just because like I want to root for him to win because he's fun. I want to see more of him saying that the world is flat. But Dan Ige is the smart pick here, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, call me an idiot because I'm taking Bryce Mitchell. Listen, I think taking Dan Ige is the more fun pick because I think Bryce Mitchell, as we saw with him against who was it, Edson Barboza. That he's able to go out there with a striker and make that striker think twice about closing the distance and getting close to him because he can take you down. And if he takes you down, he can wrap you up. Now, Ilya Topuria, yeah, granted, he, definitely was overmatched against Bryce Mitchell, or Bryce Mitchell was overmatched against him. Ilya Topuria was able to shine that he was definitely a level or two above Bryce Mitchell. But I think Ilya Topuria would do that to a lot of guys in that division. And he would do it probably to a lot of guys at 155 as well. I think Bryce Mitchell against Dan Ige is a completely different fight. Dan Ige has shown decent takedown defense in his career, actually pretty good takedown defense, but I think Bryce Mitchell's a different beast. I think just because Ilya Topuria was able to out-grapple him doesn't mean that Dan Ige is also going to be able to. Ilya Topuria, got to remember, is top echelon in pretty much both areas, both grappling and striking in the UFC. He's, top 3 at 145. It's like him. Honestly, I would say it's him, Holloway, and Volkanovski are probably the top 3 in that division right now.
Hands down, yes.
So just because Bryce Mitchell's not in that top 3, I still think puts him in a place where he can take on Dan Ige. I think if he gets Dan Ige to the ground, which I think is likely to happen because he has good ability to do that, I think he's going to be able to lock up a submission on Dan Ige. Again, Dan Ige is not the most complicated guy. He's a boxer, so he's going to be heavy on the front leg, and I think Bryce Mitchell is going to be able to get in there at some point and wrap that up. He's got, even though he shows damage a lot, he's got really good durability. He took a lot of damage from Ilya Topuria, and again, up until that point, that's his first loss in the UFC and in MMA. So I'm not convinced that Bryce Mitchell, at least against the caliber of a guy like Dan Ige, and a guy who in Dan Ige is mainly a boxer, throws a little bit of leg kicks, but really not that much. It's not that diverse of a skill set. He's going to walk you down. He's going to try and land. If you have him going on the back foot, I think it's not Dan Ige's fight. I think Bryce Mitchell, with a threat of the takedown, potentially could do that with Dan Ige coming forward. Potentially if he's staying for a second, charges in, Bryce Mitchell could have every opportunity to take him down, grab his hips, and then get his back and really try to go to work on him. So I'm going to be going with the less sexy pick in Bryce Mitchell because I don't think the one showing against the top 3 guy in the world is enough to shake me of my confidence in him as a MMA fighter yet.
That's really solid logic. Like I agree with that. The fact that Ilya Topuria would potentially do that to everybody, or most guys, not Volk. But most guys at 145, he would dog walk like that. But I think that Dan Ige, you said he won't out grapple Bryce Mitchell. I don't think that he needs to out grapple offensively and lock up a submission. I just think what he needs to do, Bryce Mitchell loves laying in guys full guard and posturing up and just trying to lay down a couple of strikes here and there, some body strikes, some elbows from up top. All Danny Ige needs to do is just wiggle out. And he's very good at wiggling out of shit. He's very good at putting his feet on guys' hips when he's in that bottom position and just pushing his way out. Bryce Mitchell's a hard guy to do that to. But I think that Danny Ige can make this an exciting fight. And I think if Bryce Mitchell has his way for 15 minutes, it's going to be boring as fucking anything. So, I think Danny Ige has the ability to make it exciting. And if it's an exciting fight, then Danny Ige wins. That's what it comes down to, I think. More than likely, Bryce Mitchell wins the decision just because he's going to land those takedowns throughout the course of the fight. But Danny Ige is the fun pick. He's the money pick. I think there's going to be a lot of dogs on this card, a lot of these slight dogs. Main event. You ready for it?
Let's do it.
I am torn on this one because I'm a huge fan of Mateusz Gamrot. I don't know how you say his name.
Mateusz, I think.
Mateusz Gamrot. Big fan of his because I like his style. He's an ADCC grappling champion. He's got fun grappling style. He's got decent striking. If he catches guys, he has the ability to stun them a little bit and then implement his grappling. So he's able to mix in that striking with it as well. Obviously, he's a very well-rounded, balanced fighter. Had not a bad loss against Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush kind of did his thing against Mateusz Gamrot, and then he came back with a win against Jalen Turner, which is a tough win because Jalen Turner is so big and so long, and his striking is so on point sometimes. But Mateusz Gamrot against a tall guy that is also very slippery and uses his length well when it comes to the grappling, Gamrot still came out with the split decision. Tough fight, hard fight, was able to pull out with a W. The grappling is really what did it for him there. But he does like to try and stand and strike with guys from time to time. And that doesn't spell, success against a guy like Rafael Fiziev, who is an incredible striker, had a bad show. No, I wouldn't even say a bad showing, right? Put up a good fight against Justin Gaethje almost 6 months ago. But Justin Gaethje just put in work. Justin Gaethje really did his thing and showed that there's levels. And I think that Mateusz Gamrot and Rafael Fiziev are on the same level right now. They're drifting in the same rankings. They fought just about the same level of competition. Beneil Dariush is upper echelon. Justin Gaethje is upper echelon. They came away with losses against those guys. But against guys like Bobby Green and Jalen Turner, who present challenges to some guys, are talented fighters, they were able to walk away with the W. They're on that same level. They're almost there. And this is an important fight, too, for the future of the division, because we are looking for active contenders in the lightweight division right now. But, I think Rafael Fiziev is going to be able to outstrike Mateusz Gamrot very obviously, attack the body quite a bit. And his cardio is very good. He's able to last in a 5-round fight because of his cardio and because of the damage that he can take. And I think in it's his second 5-rounder, right? That fight against Gaethje was 5 rounds, I'm pretty sure. He's able to go that long, and I don't think Mateusz Gamrot's ever main evented or have a 5-rounder before. So that cardio comes into question too. Gamrot's got good cardio, but is it 5-round cardio? With a guy like Fiziev, who's going to be striking with him the whole time and really just trying to throw everything at him.
He went 5 rounds with RDA. He went 3 rounds with Justin Gaethje.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was the co-main on a pay-per-view, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. Edwards Usman 3.
Yes, that's right. Okay. So that was a 3-rounder. It was the co-main. Anyways, yeah, he has that 5-round cardio. The striking is definitely good enough the last 5 rounds. More
And just to say this, Mateusz went 5 rounds against Arman Sarukian and got the win in a decision.
That's also a great fight too. I forgot about that one. Yeah, Arman Sarukian is also great competition right now. Very well rounded. These 3 guys I've probably like simulated in UFC online multiple times, like that triangle of Fiziev, Gamrot, and Sarukian. Because if you know how to fight with the 3 of them in the game, you're a fucking savage. But long story short, I'm gonna. Now I'm having a tough time. Maybe the grappling from Gamrot may be tough for Fiziev. I'm gonna go with Fiziev. 5-round experience, great striking, has shown like decent takedown defense in the past. Is able to maintain distance really well. He's got like that really good Muay Thai push kick and the side kicks and everything. Good to get. He's good at getting creative with his striking. If he's able to maintain distance against Mateusz Gamrot using his striking, then I think that he won't like Gamrot maybe win more than like a round or 2. So I'm going to go with Fiziev. I think he's going to win the majority of the exchanges on the feet and be able to prevent dominance from the takedowns and the grappling. So Fiziev is my pick. What do you got, Tom?
I think this one's going to be really, really close. I don't think we're going to see a one-sided operation from either guy. I think Fiziev, his approach is going to be volume. It's going to be try to smother Mateusz Gamrot, try to get in his face, keep that kickboxing, background and style that he has for such a long time. Use those kicks to try and, eat up the legs, go to throw to the body, jump in, give him, quick punches, jump back out. Just try to really pressure Gamrot and get him to fight the fight that Fiziev wants to by using that pressure, using that cardio, and using that kind of mauling crazy man approach and that style. Mateusz Gamrot, on the other hand, is a little bit more methodical. He's going to take his time. He's trying to be more technical and more intelligent with his strikes. He's going to be now he's not a counterpuncher per se, but I think that's the role he's probably going to have to play in this fight. He does, like you said, always have that ability to go to the ground and have the better acumen there. But Fiziev is not a guy who's necessarily able to be taken to the ground easily. I think he's got a background in sambo as well as kickboxing. So, I mean, I know he's difficult to get to the ground, but Gamrot is top tier when it comes to his ground game. Going and getting wins with it in fights that involved 5 rounds and the ground and Arman Sarukian is nothing to scoff at. So I think Gamrot is probably the more well-rounded fighter. Fiziev is the fighter with a little bit more power, but mostly the volume advantage. And maybe the cardio advantage, but I'm not as willing to say that. It's hard because Fiziev keeps such a higher pace and he can keep that for longer. Whereas Gamrot, he can keep his pace for 3, 4, 5 rounds. He maybe falls off a little bit, but again, he's still getting used to the 5-round fight. Whereas Fiziev, he's got strong cardio throughout. It's just more of an active pace, so it's hard to judge who's better at the individual cardio game. I could see Gamrot. If he can get Fiziev to the ground, I could see him using that to get a couple rounds in his favor. And if the grappling can tire out Fiziev, which is something that he's not used to having to fight grappling that much. And he didn't have to against Justin Gaethje. I think Fiziev also leaves himself open a little bit. If Gamrot can find some of the Justin Gaethje secret to beating Fiziev and throw those counter punches, I think that he's going to be in good shape as well. So I'm going to go back I'm going to take the plus money. I'm going to go with Mateusz Gamrot. I think he's going to watch the Justin Gaethje film. I think he's going to use kickboxing of his own and use the ground game to try and get Fiziev tired in the first few rounds, try to get that takedown, try to eat up the legs. And as Fiziev gets close, try and maybe teep him in the body. He's going to try and be the more intelligent fighter to keep the more, brawling, active fighter off of him. We'll see what wins in this matchup, but I'm going with Gamrot.
I'm with it, man. Well, no, I'm not with it.
No, you're not.
I'm with your logic behind it. You kind of swayed me a little bit. That's how that initially came out, but no, I'm still gonna pick Fiziev. I think it's tough. Like all he really brings to the table is his striking, so it is a hard pick, but we have to diverge in some spots. So, you want to do a quick pick rundown then?
I'm with you. Let's go.
Okay, let's rip it.
All right. Pick rundown.
Yes, sir. For the prelims, a prelim lock. I genuinely feel very good about this bet responsibly. Tim Means over Andre Fiala with the plus money. I like Muhammad Usman over Jake Collier quite a bit. I like that a lot. And we're going with Dan Argueta over Miles Johns. Main card, I like Charles Jourdain to potentially get a finish over Ricardo Ramos. I like Brian Battle over AJ Fletcher, Marina Rodriguez over Michelle Watterson Gomez, Karate Hottie. I'm going with Dan Ige over Bryce Mitchell, and I'm going with Rafael Fiziev over Mateusz Gamrot. What do you got?
I am going to be basically taking almost all of the same guys that you took. I'm taking Muhammad Usman over Jake Collier. I think you might be able to take Muhammad Usman by TKO or finish, or TKO or decision on that one, just to try and get a little bit better odds. I'm going with Tim Means over Andre Fiallo, Dan Argueta over Miles Johns. I'm basically just repeating everything you said at this point, Keith. Charles Jourdain over Ricardo Ramos. I'm going with Bryce Battle over AJ Fletcher. Marina Rodriguez over Michelle Watterson Gomez. Bryce Mitchell over Dan Ige, which is, I think we diverged there. I'm going with Mateusz Gamrot over Rafael Fiziev. We've diverged there. So a little bit of difference at the end.
Yeah, the co-main and the main event we split up at. But that's all right. We'll see who comes out on top. Our records are still really good for the year. I think we're both above, or we're almost at like that 70% mark.
Yeah, I think we've hung around 66, 65, a little bit longer than I wanted to. But we're on the mend. We're on the mend.
The year is just barely halfway done. Well, maybe a little bit more than halfway.
3/4. We're about 3/4 of the way done.
Yeah, we still have a lot of pay-per-views, especially like big ones like that. Abu Dhabi cards coming up with the Charles main event and the Paulo Costa Hamzat co-main event. Notice I didn't say I don't give a fuck about him. I hope he gets slaughtered in front of his home crowd. If you've been watching long enough, you know who I hate. Oh, my God, Cat. Clicking everything on my screen. All right. That just about wraps up. Follow us Twitter, Instagram, at Pickin Winners, @_Pickin Winners, at Pickin Keith for me, at Pickin Fights Tom for Tom. And I keep saying Twitter. It's now X, right? Apparently.
It's X, yeah.
Yeah, X and Instagram. Something just clicked. I think he named it after his kid. His first kid is named like X something.
He's also got SpaceX, and you got the Tesla Model X.
Dude,
a lot of X's going on with that guy.
And he's got a couple of hottie X's like Amber Heard and Grimes, and he's like still obsessed with all of his X's. So, yeah, a lot of X's going around for Elon Musk. Anyways,
he lives in Texas, like he's George Strait.
Yes, because all of his X's, yeah. Or the Drake line, all my exes live in Texas like I'm George Strait.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, just debunked something I think we did. But yeah, great episode. Glad we did it. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your week. Attack it hard. And enjoy the fights. Let us know what you think of the picks. Bye-bye.